Okay, we are still on day 17. There you go, day 17, and we're on the other side. So number 1 says round the decimal with the larger value to the tenths place. So the larger value number we're going to round to the tenths place. And it says the smaller value number we're going to round to the hundredths place. Okay, well, we got to figure out which one's bigger. So we're going to cover up the thousands because we're going to think money. So we've got $12.90 over here, and we've got $12.40. So which is more, $12.40 or $12.90? Well, obviously $12.90 is going to be more. So we're going to round this to the tenths place. Again, our tenths place is where our dimes would be. That's going to be the number right after the decimal. We're going to underline it. Anytime we round, guys, we underline the place value that it's asking us to round to. We circle the number after it. We draw an arrow back, and we say, does that 0 change that 9? Well, obviously, that 0 is not going to change that 9, okay? Because it has to be 5 or more to change it, and it's actually nothing. So if we round this number, it's going to be 12 9/10. The number that's circled and everything after it goes away. And if we say this answer, 12 9/10, we should say whatever that word is last if we rounded it correctly. And we did. We said tenths, and we were rounding to the tenths, so we're good to go. So we're supposed to round the smaller valued number to the hundredths place. So this is our tenths, and this is our hundredths. So we're going to underline the hundredths place. We're going to circle the number after. We're going to draw our arrow back, and we're going to say, does that 9 change that 0? Well, it does, because that 9 is 5 or more, so that's going to go up 1. So we're going to end up with 12 41 hundredths. Okay? Again, we say the answer. We want to end with that word, 12 41 hundredths. So we have rounded both those numbers correctly. Okay, it says, it took Bella 2 3/4 minutes to run about the track. It took David 1 1/8 minutes longer to run around the track. Well, if it took somebody longer, is their number going to be bigger or smaller? Well, obviously it's going to be bigger, because if it took him a longer amount of time, it's going to be a bigger number than this. So it says, how many minutes did it take David to run? Well, if we know it took Belinda this, and it took David 1 1/8 more than that, what do we need to do with those numbers? Well, we need to add them, okay? So we have 2 3/4. Remember, anytime we're adding fractions or mixed numbers, we're going to write them horizontally. We're going to look at our denominator, and we're going to circle whichever denominator is the biggest. So 8 is bigger than 4, so it gets circled. So we first ask ourselves, after we circle our biggest denominator, does 4 go into 8, or is 4 a factor of 8? Well, it is. So if we say yes, that makes it really easy. We just write our circled number down, because that is our first common multiple. That is our common denominator, okay? So how do we get from 8 to 8? Well, that's just times 1, so that makes this really easy. This didn't change, so this is not going to change. Well, how do we get from 4 to 8? Well, we multiplied by 2. 4 times 2 is 8. Whatever we do on the bottom, we got to do on the top. So 3 times 2 is 6. Now we're adding, so we're going to take care of just our fractions first. Remember, we have to have common denominators, which is why we did that. So we have 6 plus 1 is 7. Our denominator doesn't change. Our fraction is 1 away, so we know we're finished. We know we can't simplify that. And 2 plus 1 is 3. So our final answer is, how long did it take David? It took him 3 7/8 minutes. And that is our final answer. Okay, our next question says, Micah is filling a rectangular, hey Micah, hi Micah. Micah is filling a rectangular shaped box with cubes. The number of cubes for the first layer is shown below. Well, guys, if she's filling a rectangular shape of anything, then we know we're talking volume, okay? So we know our formula is going to be volume equals length times width times height, or it's going to be volume equals base times height. So we can kind of see what they gave us. Well, they actually gave us a base, because it says the number of cubes for the first layer. Well, if they give you the first layer, that's the same thing as the base, okay? It says if Micah adds 4 more layers inside the box, what is its volume? Well, We already have 1 layer, but what does it say? It says she's adding 4 more layers. So if we've already got 1 and she's adding 4 more, that's actually 5 layers. Okay? So if we're looking at this and we've got length times width times height, well, it's got a 3 right here because that 3 inches is our width, right? So this says it's 15 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1, 2, 3. So our base is actually what's 15 inches. Okay, so I don't know why it gives us these 3 numbers that I don't know where this 9 came from. But to find our base, we've got 5 times 3. Okay, so that's going to give us 15. So this is our base. So let's go ahead and use our volume equals base times height because we already have our base. So we don't know our volume. We know our base is 15 inches, and we can even count this, guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Well, we know our base is 15, and how many layers did it say we were going to have? Well, we see 1, and it said she adds 4 more, so that gives us 5 total. So that means volume equals 15 times 5. Remember, when there's not a sign in between the letters or the numbers, we know it's multiplication, okay? So we're going to come over here and we're going to do our multiplication. So 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 1 is 5 plus 2 is 7. So our volume is 75. We need to come and look for our unit of measure. Okay, our unit of measure is inches. And guys, if we just found volume, that means it's cubed. Okay, we found a length times a width times a height. So that's going to be cubed. So that's our final answer. I'll go ahead and write it here. 75 inches cubed. Okay, it says, what is the difference between the lower test score and the highest? Well, guys, we're looking at a stem and leaf, okay? And we know how to do this. We know how to read stem and leaf, okay? The first thing that we always have to do is we always have to look at the key. And the main reason we have to look at the key is because the key tells us if these numbers represent decimals or if they represent whole numbers. So this says, the key says 8 with a slash here, 3 means 83. So we're working with whole numbers, not decimals. Well, it says, what's the difference? So if we're finding the difference, we know that means subtract. And if we're finding the difference between the lowest and the highest, that's actually really called range. So what they're really asking us is, what is the range between the highest and the lowest? Remember our song. Hey diddle diddle, the median's the middle. You add then divide for the mean. The mode is the one that appears the most, and the range is the difference between. Okay, it's the difference between the highest and the lowest. So if we're reading a stem and leaf, our lowest number is going to be our top stem and our very, very first leaf. So that means that's going to be 78. And our biggest number is going to be our last leaf and our very, 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 very last, our last stem and our very, very, very last leaf, which means we have 91. And if we're finding the difference, we obviously have to put the larger number on top to subtract. So we've got 9 minus 7 is 2, but does our friend need help? Yes. So instead of that 2, we're going to put a 1, and we're going to add that extra 1 over there for help for our friend. And 11 minus 8 is 3. So what is the difference between the test scores, the highest and lowest? It's 13.